Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Israel, the game is World of Warships. Welcome to Domination, welcome to Trap, and welcome Master Ollie, who is in the Tier 8 Soviet Premium Light Cruiser, the Mikhail Kutuzov. Incidentally, if you're ever in the vicinity of Novorossiysk, you can actually go and see the ship. She's preserved there as a museum vessel. The Sverdlov-class light cruisers were introduced in the 1950s as a Cold War ship. They were the last all-gun cruisers that the Russians ever produced, and they served right the way up until the late 1980s. Ollie, however, cares very little for this. He is on Trap, and it's a random battle, so we're getting the usual bomb burst for the initial deployment. A couple of the destroyers are toddling off to A, Ollie is heading for C, Stuntman 0369 is off into B, he is going to be braving the Thunderdome, and this is where you realise that Trap is an extremely well-named map. Let's kick over to the map view for a second. So, all of the control points are, in fact, traps. As I said, it's a very well-named map. Point A, this is the most obvious one. If you are coming from either the south or the east, you can get into the control point, but you can only do it by breaking cover, and then you have got really nothing else to scuttle to without aborting your cap. Your only real option if you're coming from the east is to turn starboard and hope you can get behind the island here in H3, and if you're lucky that will save you, but then you're up against a shoreline with nowhere to go. Ditto if you're coming from the south, you can pull in behind the island at H3, but again, you've got nowhere to go, the enemy know exactly where you're going to be if the cap counter's ticking, and, well, bad stuff generally starts happening. It's one of the reasons why a lot of the time in Trap you will see people saying ignore A, go for B and C. The problem, of course, is that B is, well, it's basically the Thunderdome. As you can see, both sides' destroyers have entered. Only one side's destroyers are going to leave, at least leave intact. The only other way out, of course, is down, and, well, that's always problematic. Point C, however, is more insidious, and the enemy have actually fallen into it. Over there you can see a Bismarck and a Myoko, medieval one, well, it's actually the Arpeggio Ashigara, but hey, replay client thinks it's a Myoko, and technically it is. We've also got Thomas P in the Bismarck. And they've got an island behind them, and they can't really turn to starboard, so they're forced to sail broadside on to the incoming fleet from the west. And they're lucky in this case that there are no battleships, because we all know what battleships like to do to broadside targets. Thomas took a fire from Ollie there, he's popped his damage control to contain it, and that's a decision that is shortly going to come back and bite him somewhat. Ollie, meanwhile, has gotten his smoke on. The Kutuzov was one of the first cruisers to mount smoke, and it gets the same smoke, if memory serves, as the Russian destroyers. So unlike the Royal Navy cruisers, smaller puffs, but it gets more of them, which is something of a blessing when you're trying to stop a cruiser from about 20 knots. Of course, Kutuzov is still a cruiser, so torpedoes can be a problem. You really don't want to stay broadside. Ollie's lost line of sight to the Tirpitz, so he gets his guns back round onto Thomas, fires off his forward turrets. 6-inch guns at that kind of range, well, armour piercing's a waste of ammo. Fire the stern turrets off at the Tirpitz, and he puts Thomas on fire again. No matter, just use damage control to contain... Oh, wait. That's a problem. Thomas is, of course, now thoroughly on fire. He's got at least one burning, his damage control's on cooldown, and he's got no way of putting it out. All he can do is pop a repair party and soak the damage. Meanwhile, we've just caught sight of a Budyonny, and Ollie has loaded the armour piercing in anticipation, but both destroyers in B, Stunt and the Gerda, have had to dive into smoke to avoid the Budyonny's guns, so we've lost line of sight. Deprived of his spotting, Ollie looks around for a target, fires at Kraken in the Arizona, and then, as if to taunt him, Jack Cromwell reappears in the Budyonny. And to be honest, I don't think Jack realised that Ollie was there. You'd think he'd have noticed the angry smoke cloud that was coming in, because as Ollie starts to move, his smoke is about to expire. Jack is going to make a horrible and frankly terminal mistake in the Budyonny. He starts turning. And the Budyonny, well, it's a Russian cruiser. Great guns, absolutely lethal railguns on it, but it's not got much armour, it's a big target, and it's got a huge citadel, so if you're sailing broadside to anything at 5 kilometres, yeah. That's a paddling. And it's also Ollie's first kill of the match. Don't worry, he's just getting warmed up. Stun to Armin von Roon trade destroyers, which is not actually that great because it does mean that the enemy team have control of the Thunderdome for the moment. Ollie gets a few shots off at the Shiratsu, but the Shiratsu has found God and also the smoke button, so no more targets to be had there. Kick over to C, and he's trying to get in to support the cap, which also has the benefit that he's now presenting his stern to the probably very angry Arizona and Tirpitz south of B, who would doubtless like to get their hands on some Russian broadside. And if they'd known what Ollie was going to do in the rest of this game, they would definitely have wanted to get their hands on some Russian citadel. However, they didn't. There is some random fire incoming, but, well, it's desultory. A few rounds of high explosive. Kudos to whoever fired it, though, because they did manage to hit him, but no damage. It just shattered on the hull, and Ollie is still on full health. And he's still got all 12 guns, which is unfortunate for this Z-23. Hello, Fraulein. 7 hits and a fire, immediately controlled with damage control. Unlike a battleship, you really don't want a destroyer to be barbecuing. Unfortunately, that does mean that Maestro Kill's engine is then out, and there's relatively little to do about it. However, he has got last stand because he's not slowing to a stop, so he can still limp away and vaguely hold the range on Ollie. Ollie kicks round, tries to get the stern guns into play, but, well, Maestro got his smoke launcher into play, and he's lost line of sight. Which is unfortunate for Minimono in the Benson, because now Ollie's got very little else to shoot at. And that's it was a 3,000 health Benson, now it's a 1,500 health Benson, and now it's a 200 health Benson, well, 225, 179, 132, oh dear. Farewell, that's kill number 2. Except Ollie is now probably going to be extremely grateful he's got his smoke back, because that's a very hungry-looking Bismarck. Thomas P., who is probably still smouldering slightly after what happened to him earlier, is out for blood, and yes, Biscuit is looking right at Ollie. Of course, Ollie popped his smoke, and while he's got to endure that fire until he gets his damage control back, he can fire at Thomas with complete impunity. Because Thomas, as I said, no line of sight, can only really gauge from the muzzle flashes, and isn't too keen on wasting the ammo. He's probably also realising just how much trouble he's in, because, yeah, that's good night to him. Volley of armour piercing to the superstructure finishes him off. And now it's Medieval's turn. Medieval got through the trap at the south of sea relatively intact, because everyone was shooting at the Bismarck. Unfortunately, now the Bismarck's dead, he's outnumbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1 effectively. And, well, there's not a great deal he can do about it. Brief brown trousers moment there, courtesy of some torpedoes setting off the alarm. But Ollie is finding his range with the guns, the Milko is nice and close, and obligingly, he's going broadside. And again, the Milko driver realises he might be in a bit of trouble, tries to turn, and who left that island there? Oh dear, splat. That's kill number 4. And we're now just under 9 minutes into the game, and believe me, Ollie is still only getting warmed up on this little rampage. Point C is secure, so the fleet up north has now got to turn south, where things haven't been going quite so well. Silent Flash down in the Bismarck is doing his best, but, well, he's up against a wall here. He's in a Bismarck. He's got an Arizona, a Tirpitz, and a Cleveland shooting at him. He's got probably a Shiratsu on the lurk, and that Shokaku is going to be eyeing him up as well. Which is of absolutely no consolation to Maestrup Kill, who's been caught by the Allied Nuremberg under Phobos FS7. Which means Ollie has got range and line of sight, which means firing solutions, which means incoming fire, and cue the torpedo beats from the Shiratsu's long-range salvos. Maestrop's still desperately trying to evade fire. Ollie is putting down what rounds he can, but at this range, against a target that's even slightly evading, even the Russian railguns, and look at that dispersion, aren't going to accomplish all that much. It's almost a pity the Russian guns are so good, because any error in the aiming means that Ollie's broadsides are going, well, anywhere but the destroyer. Although I don't think that's much consolation to Meistrop over there, who is rapidly running out of health and has got 6-inch salvos popping around his ears every 8 seconds or so. Oh, and his engine's knackered again. Well, it had more sense than the rest of the ship, because Ollie promptly smacks him out of the water, and that's Kraken unleashed, just shy of 100,000 damage. No, he's not done yet. Point B, ladies and gentlemen, enter the Thunderdome. 2 fleets enter, and somewhat less are going to leave. Ollie spots his old friend, Leak 381. This is going to be risky for him. He is down to less than half health after that run-in with the Bismarck, but, well, his smoke launcher is back, so you know what's coming. Pop the launcher, hit the brakes. Slightly too late there, because the Tirpitz and the Cleveland both get line of fire, and we have rounds incoming. The Tirpitz gets its stern 15 inches off the way as he catches fire from Ollie's vodka-infused rounds once again. Ooh, that stang. Can't take too many more hits like that, but he's now safely concealed in the smoke. He's backing up, and that's going to be enough to just about wreck the hostile gun solutions. Leak has blown his damage control. Ollie sets him on fire again, and this is going to be problematic for Leak, because now the friendly Shokaku wants some as well, and that's 1 torpedo hit. Don't think it's got him flooding just yet, but don't worry, there's plenty more planes where those came from, and Leak's on fire and can't do anything about it. So Ollie switches his fire. He's now got a very tempting target in the shape of Dr. Dirtbox in the Cleveland, and you'll notice he's switching between high explosive and armor piercing. He's trying to anticipate the angle that Dirtbox is going to be at when the rounds get to him, and it takes him a few broadsides to get in sync. Quick pop at the Tirpitz because Dirtbox is angled. Background to arm piercing, Dirtbox finally opens up the angle a bit too much, gives Ollie flat broadside, armor piercing goes out and comes in a little high, but that's still 5,000 damage, and on a light cruiser like the Cleveland with no heals, that's not a hit you can really afford to take too often. Dirtbox manages to get himself angled back up again, but it's far too late. He's got Ollie's high explosive coming at him, and that high explosive does not care about angle, and that's enough to put him down. Meanwhile, Leak 381 is still toddling along in what's left of his Tirpitz. He's got the fires out. Well, actually, they burned themselves out, and I think he got the flooding under control. Oh, wait, no, scratch that comment about the fire. Oh, dear. And Leak goes down. That's kill number 7. The Shokaku is recovering its planes after a strike, so the Turkeys have most definitely played their part on this one. They got several significant hits into the Tirpitz of Leak, and they're going to come back in time for later in the battle. Don't you worry, we're going to see those planes again. The enemy Shokaku's planes are doing what they can, but they're trying to take on a Leningrad. That's a 42-knot monster of a target if you're in a carrier, so unsurprisingly, they are not going to get very far. Meanwhile, Chimera has been caught again. Unfortunately, this time, he's been caught by the Leningrad. And while the Shiratsu can just about run from a Nuremberg, a 34-knot Shiratsu against a 42-knot Leningrad, forget it. His only hope is that the Shokaku's planes are going to sink the Leningrad, and that hasn't happened. So, spotted, no way to break contact, and, well, he's trying to get away, give him credit, but Ollie's guns have found their mark, and the Shiratsu is on fire. And, oh looky, damage control does not appear to be available. Chimera is burning, and while Ollie does put a final broadside in the air, rearranging the geography as he goes, it's actually the fire that bags him kill number 8. Don't worry, he's just about done. The enemy have almost run out of ships. In fact, it's down to the Arizona and the Shokaku in the southwest, down by Point A. Ollie finishes the cap of the Thunderdome, aided by Krek 60 in the Mehan, and then they pick up the Arizona. Karkin, it has to be said, does at least attempt to go down swinging. He's in a US standard battleship, he was in Point A, and that's the other thing about Point A, of course, particularly for slower ships like the US standards. If you're down there, your ability to affect the rest of the battlefield is, well, it's basically nil. Ollie's picked him up, he gets a couple of blind shots firing on the last known position, but he's got to wait for a new target. And while he's doing that, well, may as well put some rounds into Dastan, because, hey, nothing else to shoot at the moment. But he's reacquired the Arizona, and the Arizona has acquired him. Here comes the high-axe ollie, jams over the rudder, slams on the brakes, and the shots miss via the bow. He's got Dastan on fire, which is less important than it used to be, but right now, well, the Shokaku has ducked behind an island, so only thing left to shoot at is Kraken in the Arizona. So that's what he does. Bring forth the vodka, comrades. It's party time. And the turkeys are inclined to agree. In they go. Out come the torpedoes. Ollie sets the Arizona on fire once again. And the Shokaku's carrier planes, who I should probably stop cracking turkey jokes about, lest I meet a Shokaku in my next game, managed to get multiple torpedo hits onto Kraken. So he's now burning in at least 2 places. He's probably flooding from the Shokaku's torpedoes, and, well, damage control? Nope. Nope, 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 nope. This is not going to end well for Kraken. He is basically dead. He might, however, be able to take Ollie with him. Down come the armor piercing. He takes 1 hit, knocks him down to 4,500 health. He was probably not going to get Citadel from that unless it got a very unlucky hit through the forward deck. Didn't happen anyway, so Kraken is going to be denied even the consolation of taking out Ollie, and, well, that's the end of that. It's not a surprise that Ollie got 3,000 base XP and a raft of other goodies from that game. 9 kills is, well, my record is 7 and most people are content with a Kraken. Of course, it would have been the elusive and legendary double Kraken had the scoreboard not treacherously reached 1,000 points and ended the match. The Shokaku would have been relatively easy meat in the next few minutes, but it wasn't to be, and I don't think we can send the scoreboard to the Gulag. Of interest, however, is the 50,000 fire damage that he racked up. I'll concede that Kutuzov is very definitely a fire breather. 12 rapid-fire guns will do that, but it also has to be noted that some of the enemy battleships seemed a bit too quick with their damage control. To reiterate the usual advice, 1 fire, not worth damcon. Fire damage can be completely healed, so your best option is often just to soak it and pop a repair party if you've got one available, while you save damcon for the really serious stuff like flooding and multiple 2 or 3 or even 4 fires. And always, always take premium damage control, even if you're reduced to scrabbling around the back of the sofa for the loose change to pay for it. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap this video up. I am Israel, that has been Master Ollie running amok in the Kutuzov. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and until next time, farewell.